Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dale Wolkenstein here with you from the LAFB Network. If this is your first time tuning in to the show, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Dan Wolkenstein, say it again because 2 weeks in a row now we have a Victory Monday. Put the briskets on the barbecue because the Chargers were eating healthy yesterday against the Cleveland Browns. Dan Wolkenstein, we had perceived this as a don't take them lightly, Cleveland Browns, based off of what they had done the week before against the Baltimore Ravens. But did Jesse Minter and Jim Harbaugh waver at all? No, they did not. 27-10 was your final score for the Chargers. Big time developmental, just offensive playing for the Chargers overall. Justin Herbert, this defense once again showing out even without Christian Fulton in that game. And there is a lot to get into. We have your voicemails from the Chargers Unleashed hotline that we were, of course, going to get into and dissect. But Dan Wolkenstein, we need to have our moment of discussion as it relates to this game. Generally, as it was going along, there was some things that we were very happy about, things that we weren't so happy about. We could be real as it relates to this show and having some healthy criticism as it relates to the team. But overall, I know you're happy today on Monday.
It is hard for me to wipe the smile off my face. And normally I'm the pessimist this year, but for whatever reason, something got to me.
You didn't seem like it yesterday. You seemed extremely positive. You put Darth Dan in a box.
I don't know. You took on Darth Dan.
I may have taken on Jake Vader for a period of time, not going to lie, but I'm not going to say that you put Darth Dan away and, locked it up with a key and threw it away. I think you may still open that box at some point, but you kind of put your villain arc away yesterday.
A little bit. And again, I think the important growth moment for both of us, as we've done this show now for 5 seasons, is we can tether reality to optimism and pessimism and try not to go one way or the other too much. There's a lot of great in that game. There were still things to improve upon, and that's what you love to have. After a dominant victory, still things to learn and things to improve. Now, would you like to have so many things to improve upon? No, but competitors welcome, and 1% better every day is the goal. Chargers win 27-10, a touchdown in garbage time for the Browns as Chargers get out of there. Kind of cakewalk the second half, if we're being honest. Some offense struggles in the second half, which we'll get to. But again, Jake mentioned it. Chargers Unleashed hotline was fully on tilt. 323-902-7586 is the number to the hotline. Leave a 30-second voicemail anytime, and we can get you on the show. Jake, the Chargers start going downfield. The defense dominates. Special teams, up and down, I would say, for some different folks. Tale of two halves in some regards in this game. But Jake, this Chargers team is 5-3. Match the win total of all of last season. Firmly in the playoff picture. Trade deadline less than 24 hours away. Before we talk about all of it,
yes,
let's pay the bills. Let's talk about our friends.
I want to remind everybody that BetOnline is your world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. You think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200K. When the game is over, head on over to our online casino and get on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our 150 slot games. Head on over to the website today. That's betonline.ag to get in on the action. BetOnline. The game starts here.
So it started off kind of weird. Everyone was excited for Shark Week, and then Shark Week was canceled for a week as he's postponed. We got to see Quinton Johnston back, Darius Davis back, Hayden Hurst back, Jalen Reagor still on the squad with DJ Chark still elevated but not activated, in the window but not playing. Seems like a loophole to me, but I'll take it for whatever it's worth. And then when the game starts, it got a little hairy there for a bit with the Chargers giving up some sacks, which we'll talk about here. But the Chargers go downfield. They get deep shots to Quentin Johnston, deep shots to Josh Palmer. they are looking a little different with a healthy Justin Herbert. Greg Roman alluded to it as much. And this Chargers defense, Jake, has not missed a beat, continues to be the number one scoring defense in the entire NFL. Jake, biggest takeaway from this game is what?
Jesse Minter's defense. I don't know how you could start on anything more than that. I know everybody would love to talk about Justin Herbert, and yes, definitely he and Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh in terms of how they have adjusted with Justin Herbert since the bye week in terms of airing it more downfield, making some of those adjustments in order to put things in the end zone when your running game is not working as your focal point for your offense. Trust me, as much as I would like to see it be much more balanced, look what you still got. Look what you still have behind center. I really just go back to that, Dan, and to think that coming into this game, you were already down two of your corners in Asante Samuel Jr., Dean Leonard. Christian Fulton was questionable coming into this game. He did not end up playing. Jasir Taylor at some point went out of this game. You had Eli Apple that was elevated from the practice squad prior to game time. And Tarheeb Still and Cam Hart, once again, have not missed a beat. Talk about Tarheeb Still just for a second. The number of plays that he contributed to, outside of him even just getting an interception, the number of plays that he alone contributed in this game, in terms of whether we're talking about the tipped interception to Elijah Molden in the end zone, to other plays that he was making specifically on wide receivers. These are 2 fifth-round cornerbacks that you drafted. And I've said this before, and I will gladly say it again until the cows come home. This is what happens when you have a competent GM and a scouting department to not only select the player, but when you have the coaching staff on top of it to develop them in the way that they need to develop, which helps their growth, which helps them build to their strengths. Steve Klingscale, once again, has preached it since training camp. Have everybody prepared for when the injuries happen. And the injuries have definitely happened to the secondary, and Cam Hart and Tarheeb Still have stepped up. Outside of that, Dan, Deion Henley was playing with his hair on fire. He should have had an interception in the first half. Same with Derwin James. There should have been 5 interceptions in this game.
I told you going into that game.
The defense just really turned it up in the second half. They were able to get pressure. Dan, that was one question that I had. Was it just a anomaly from the Saints game that you were able to get 5 sacks there? No. Morgan Fox steps up with 2 sacks of his own. You start getting a little bit more pressure on Jameis Winston as the game went on. There is so many things that you could have an hour show dedicated just to Jesse Minter 100%. Alone and what he has done to this defense, but we're not going to stop saying enough of it, because what he has done, I don't care who the opponent is. I really don't care, because the Chargers don't make their schedule. It's in terms of what they are doing, and traditionally for us as viewers, not being used to seeing defenses like that. You go back to the old stats with Justin Herbert. He's whatever his record is when his defense is only allowing so many points. This defense is still giving up the least amount of points scored in the entire NFL. That's amazing.
9 weeks.
That is way beyond what our expectations were coming into this season.
Imagine the euphoria, Chargers fans. Imagine the euphoria, Chargers fans, if this Chargers team just had an average defense. Fast forward to week 9, and this Chargers team has a dominant defense. And I'm not saying they have a bunch of dominant players, which I think they do, if we're being honest. Think of the names that you were just talking about. We're talking 2 rookie cornerbacks, Cam Hart, Tarheeb Still, Eli Apple brought in, Elijah Molden brought in from a trade by Joe Ortiz. We're talking about Troy Dye, who's had meaningful, impactful plays.
That was a hit.
We're talking about a lot of dudes. Tyre Tart, Puna Ford, Denzel Perryman. The list goes on and on and on about these defensive players that are brought in by this staff. And in 1 year with Jesse Minter and company, this defense looks night and day different. And they're on to something. I've been a little pessimistic at times, but I've said it for now, a month? Score 20? I'm feeling pretty. And this Chargers defense is not letting up at all. And it is so impressive to see. I mean, you can go down the list from Joe Ortiz, take a bow. Steve Klingscale, like you mentioned, the DBs, talk about the defensive line finally getting pressure constantly. Morgan Fox had a day. I mean, Khalil Mack went off. Deion Henley is looking like a superstar right now, all over the field. Jesse Minter, obviously, please don't go anywhere. I hope he just keeps getting paid more and more and more, and Spanis keeps opening up the checkbook. We're going 10 minutes into the show, haven't even mentioned the offense. That's how good this Chargers defense is playing right now. And again, you want to talk about the competition? I don't care. We are halfway through the season, and they have the number one scoring defense. When has a Chargers fan been able to say that?
It's been a long time since they have been able to say that. 2 points, Dan, before we move on to the voicemails and flip it over to the offense. Let's not forget that this is a Cleveland Browns team who just a week ago hung up 29 points on one of the best teams in the league, and the Baltimore Ravens going up against another Harbaugh. And I make the case for the defense once again, especially in the second half, because yes, great for the Chargers to get off to the start that they did offensively come halftime. That offense, though, stalled a little bit with a number of 3-and-out drives to start the second half.
Yep.
And hell, Cleveland had itself a nice 8-minute long drive to start that second half to ultimately end up in a turnover. The defense gave the Chargers offense 4 opportunities. That actually, it may even be 5 if you consider everything from the 4th down stop to the 3 interceptions to the blocked field goal. They gave them 5 opportunities to score points. Now, they only ended up getting 1 touchdown out of that. But it's from the standpoint that the defense was able to survive coming back on the field when your offense wasn't able to do everything, and keep giving them opportunities to score.
Yep.
That's why in previous situations that we had seen, where your offense isn't able to move the ball, eventually your defense is going to crack, give up points, and ultimately that's going to lead to your demise. It did not happen yesterday, and that's why we're leading off the show with this.
Yeah, and the other part of this is how many times have we just talked about this team doing what they're supposed to do, right? Like, you beat bad teams, you dominate bad teams, and all we've asked is for the team to do what they're supposed to do in the games that they're supposed to win. And this Chargers defense specifically is outclassing every week. And they are over-exceeding expectations, even though they keep getting bigger and bigger every week. And again, this is a Chargers defense. This is the entire game, Jake. First series, 5 plays, 12 yards, punt. Second series, 4 plays, 10 yards, punt. Third series, 3 plays, -5 yards, punt. Next series, 34 yards and a field goal. Next series, 3 plays, -5 yards, punt. Next series, 3 plays, 6 yards, punt. That's the first half. Second half, 14 plays, interception in the end zone. You mentioned it. Next series, 3 plays, 0 yards, punt. Next series, 4 plays, 19 yards, interception. Next series, 5 plays, 13 yards, turnover on downs. Next series, 3 plays, 17 yards, interception. Next series, 9 plays, blocked field goal. Then the garbage time touchdown. That's the entire game. This Chargers defense is out of its mind. And Chargers fans have not seen this. We don't know what to do with our hands. We're waiting for the other shoe to drop. We got text messages by saying things like, the Chargers offense can't keep doing this and leaving the defense out to dry. They can't keep stopping them. Oh, wait. Yes, they can. Chargers defense, that got me excited. First voicemail. Jake, let's get to
Let's
it.
hear it.
First voicemail, let's hear from Nicky Football. Let's see what he has to say about this great win against the Browns.
Hey, what's up, boys? This is Nicky Football. Just wanted to say, great win. Oh, finally a game where I could lay back with a big lead and not stress at all. And I have to say it's because a lot of it was my brother's a diehard San Francisco 49ers fan. And once we hired Jim Harbaugh, he told me.
What did he say, Jake? Guess. What did he tell him? Let's play a game.
You got a good one?
Hey, bro, congratulations. You guys just got so much better you don't even know. And the thing is, he told me, yeah, the first year Harbaugh took over, he took the bad team to a great team. And he said that was with Colin Kaepernick. And he said Justin Herbert's 10 times the quarterback he is. So I'm just, riding high right now, living life. Feels great. Cleveland Browns defense is so good. Myles Garrett, he's the best defensive player in the league. And, to get through that, now we have a good schedule coming up. I'm just loving it, boys. And, yeah, hell yeah. Let's do it.
Thank you, Nicky. We got a good one. Yeah, Myles Garrett's a freak. Schedule, by the way, Jake. Chargers, I don't know if you guys saw it. Chargers flexed into another primetime game against the Cincinnati Bengals here in a couple weeks.
And I'll say you've got one more favorable game on your schedule before it starts getting very interesting, because your next three against the Titans at home, the Bengals, and the Ravens. Now, luckily for the Chargers, I believe all three of those are at home. So that's a nice little caveat considering the road trip that they've been on to start the season. But it'll be interesting. You like what you've seen so far from the defense. And again, I don't care what the schedule says as it relates to the output. But you got to be looking forward to that matchup against Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson in the next couple of weeks.
Don't do it, Jake. Don't do it.
What did I do?
They gotta play the Tennessee game first. This is a definition of a trap game.
Look, I will say this. I think that the Chargers already had their trap game in the Arizona Cardinals. Given how that game played out and the expectations and everything defensively, I do not have any wavering confidence that after that situation that you're going to have Jesse Minter or Jim Harbaugh not have this team prepared. I totally understand the aspects of trap games, nor am I not looking past Tennessee because you still have to play it. But in terms of what everybody's talking about for the wins that the Chargers have gotten and who have they beaten and who of those defensive performances have come against, simply responding to Nick's comment about the schedule. It's not going to get so much easier here in the next couple of weeks. It's going to get tougher.
Yep. He talked about, let's go into the offense here for a little bit, and then we'll get into our second of 4 voicemails. Jake, it was like a tale of 2 and maybe a third quarters, and then the rest of it was not good for the offense. And there were, specific nuances to reasons why, but we can talk about more or less first half offense versus most of the second half offense before the dagger. Look night and day different. But you're starting to see things that Chargers fans have been clamoring for. Deep shots downfield, a healthy and effective Justin Herbert. The running game is actually continuing to look a little good with the J.K. Dobbins duo of touchdowns. Quinton Johnston gets over 100 yards.
Hey.
Got one. Almost got 2 with either Ladd or Josh Palmer.
It was close.
It was close. Not perfect, especially in that first half when you saw Myles Garrett just wreck shop. And again, we're being honest here. Wrecking shop against Joe Alt, against Rashawn Slater. Not just them. They should have had interior help, but they did not on some of them. But nevertheless, this is Myles Garrett. And as much as you want to sit here and say that you have a great tackle tandem, Myles Garrett is probably 1A or 1B best defensive end player in the NFL. And you saw why.
His 3-sack day comes after basically totally disappearing for 4 weeks. Not by not playing, simply just didn't have a sack for a 4-week period. Comes up with 3 yesterday against the Chargers. Trey Pipkins was the only offensive lineman who was not credited for giving up a sack yesterday. The Chargers had surrendered 6. And through that, especially most of it coming in the first half, they weathered the storm and they were able to make plays. Dan, there was 2 series in particular in that first half where they just could not stop Justin Herbert. And whether we're talking the deep shots or the middle of the field or how he was working certain plays with him and Ladd McConkey, he was in his bag. You just couldn't stop him in that period of time. And you gotta feel so good for Quinton Johnston. How fitting it is for 1 week after Ladd McConkey has his breakout game that Quinton Johnston gets his first 100-yard game of his career. Yep. And to, like, what a return from a standpoint of us talking about the trade deadline and the wide receiver help and Justin Herbert needs this and Justin Herbert needs that. That's how you make a statement. He even talked about it after the game to say, hey, I needed to make up for lost time and I needed to go out there and do it. One of the best quotes I heard today, Dan, from Jim Harbaugh's press conference is that I can't remember who it was that asked him, but the lateral play that took place at the end of the halftime.
That was so close.
That ended up being a lot closer than I thought, mainly contributed by Quentin Johnston. But he was asked about it. He said, that wasn't supposed to be the play. He's like, I know that there were audibles, but I don't know where that play came from. We haven't practiced that play. I'm like, are you kidding me? If that's, I find that hard to believe, but if that is any slice of being truth, that was just a wild sequence to have that. But you mentioned it. Quentin Johnston, standout. Joshua Palmer on a 3rd and 21, by the way.
We're not used to being on this side of it.
Yes. Justin Herbert finds busted coverage. Joshua Palmer all alone there in the end zone for the opening touchdown. J.K. Dobbins, who didn't have the most successful day rushing the football, but still finishes the game with 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. Damn, they did not waver away from it. Did they leave some scoring opportunities out there? Yeah, they did. But in terms of doing what you were supposed to do from the get-go, stayed ahead of the sticks in the first half, ran up the score in the second half. So Nick Chubb was not –
finally.
Yes, you took Nick Chubb out of the game. You forced Jameis Winston to win the game, which ultimately we saw what ended up happening with that in the second half. They just they stuck to their guns. They did what they needed to do. And even you heard Derwin talk about it in post game in terms of the preparation that they had coming into this game. This is another reason why I'm confident. Derwin said that game felt easy because of how prepared they were. That's another word that we have not used on Chargers Unleashed in possibly ever.
What show is this?
Preparation? What?
You know, I struggle because we're seeing seemingly improvements week over week in some aspects or another with this offense. And that was a huge spot for Quentin coming back with DJ Chark not being there, because this was the first time going into the trade deadline. We're going to see this full complement of weapons for Justin. And then last minute, he's not there. Quentin comes back. Over 100 yards. And like, those are the way that he did it was kind of dominating. Did you see his release on the touchdown? I know the blown coverage behind, but his release initially was impressive. You saw the lateral. That was pretty nice. I was closer than I thought it was going to be. Ladd McConkey doing Ladd McConkey things. He was dominating that first quarter, by the way. J.K. Dobbins had explosive runs in the second half for sure. You're seeing guys contribute. Josh Palmer, welcome back. You're seeing guys contribute in the receiving end that the style in which that they are now producing, I think Chargers opponents have been kind of banking on them not going deep. And then Chargers are just throwing over the top of them. Not all perfect. There was a time in the second half where the Chargers offense had opportunity after opportunity after opportunity when the Chargers defense continuously gave them the ball back and they couldn't capitalize. Not because of poor play. There's little nuances each way, Jake, honestly, but they had the missed field goal that should have been 3 points. They had that one drive where Quentin, is an incredible throw by Justin. Quentin dropped it, but that was a tough catch. But still, it wasn't like they were, brutal. But for the most part, they had 3 straight 3-and-outs in the second half. And I think that's what hurt. In previous years, without a Jesse Mentor-led defense, that would have killed you.
2 things that I'll make a comment on before we go to the next voicemail. Number one, I have to give a shout out to Tyler from Guilty as Charged real quick, because he put out just a absolutely hilarious tweet when in regards, because he freeze framed the Quinton Johnston deep pass. Ball's in the air. There's Quinton. And Tyler says, I had less nerves standing up at the podium for my wedding. Which was great.
You know, every Chargers fan, when that ball's in the air and you saw Quinton and you saw that ball coming in, you're like,
there it is. There it is. There it is. And we were all rewarded.
And the best part, Jake, was when he caught it, he wasn't getting caught.
No, he was gone. He was gone. And it's a great moment for him to have something like that. Second thing I'll say, Dan, when you're talking about offenses, this team at 2-2 offensively feels much different than this offense does at 5-3.
Yeah.
Something has taken this is what I was hoping for during that bye week, that offensively you go back to the drawing board, you figure out what you can improve, what you can do better. And I think offensively that the Chargers have done that in terms of mixing things up, getting more balanced, getting their guys on the same page. And obviously Justin Herbert having such confidence with a young wide receiving core that they're able to go out and do these things and still put up points. It's great.
A healthy Justin Herbert kind of makes a difference too.
Sure does.
And you're seeing the moxie of this kid right now. Some of the stuff he's doing, you just haven't seen Justin doing. I mean, look at the picture. Are you not entertained? This is a new Justin Herbert and a healthy Justin Herbert, and he's absolutely threading it. These last 3 weeks are some of the best football I've seen him play since I can remember. Again, you're not going to see the crazy stats into the 450 yards and all that jazz per game. He has been dialed in. And so many of the incompletions he's had are not his fault. They've had some insane play from their quarterback. And Greg Roman understands the assignment. And it's looking like this team is starting to figure out this team is only going to go as far as Justin Herbert will take them. And yes, you want to be balanced. You want to have a run game. But when you can't establish a run game consistently, you have the Superman with the cape. He doesn't always have to be Clark Kent. You don't always want him to be Superman, but he can be at times. And they're picking their spots, and he's rewarding them for it. The offensive line, I go back and forth. They got beat by Myles Garrett, but it wasn't just Myles Garrett, but Myles Garrett was the one that made it a real issue. But the interior offensive line still needs work. Again, I don't necessarily know if this was bad play by Joe Alt and bad play by Rashawn Slater going up against arguably the best in the NFL. But it wasn't just Myles Garrett that beat him. You had Devin Bush go in for a sack. You had Shelby Harrison there for half a sack. Dalvin Tomlinson with a sack and a half. They had 6 sacks total. They got to figure it out. And I know offensive line generally takes longer to figure out. I know that this team is, improving. But when we heard at the beginning of the season, the whole reason why Joe Alt was selected, and we heard so much talk about this Chargers offensive line being the strength of this team. Can you say that right now? I don't think that's true.
No, I think that you can look at that and you could say that if you take the team as a whole, you could say that for sure that is the weakest link. Really.
But think about that.
I get it.
It's kind of weird.
I get it. It's not flawless by any means. You can't sustain play like that week in and week out. Remember, Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt just a week ago surrendered 0 pressures, 0 sacks. Yesterday was a lot different. It was a lot different for the entirety of that offensive line. you've said this before, Dan, in previous years. Who else is coming through the door? At this point, with the trade deadline looming and the Chargers being quote unquote window shopping, not for sure, not going to make a move. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows what position for, if anything. But if they don't end up making any type of move as it relates to the offensive line, which personally I don't think they will. Not saying that they shouldn't. I'm just saying that that's what my gut is telling me. This is what you're going to have to ride with. And you're going to, as Jim Harbaugh put it today, it's still some communication issues that we're working out. We're still working out the kinks. You have to get better as it relates to the interior. Zion Johnson definitely did not have a good day yesterday. Bradley Bozeman, another rough day for him. And I think defenses are keying in on that. They've seen this because this has unfortunately been a trend for the Chargers. For that interior three of the offensive line, that's been an area for opposing defenses to attack. Hopefully, as the rest of the season goes on, because this is your core five that you're going to be riding with for the remainder of the season, you're going to have to figure out a way to get better. Protect better, run block better. You were able to do that through the first few weeks. You got to get better at it. So you allow Justin Herbert to have a clean pocket. And I will say this, Dan, I do think that one or two of those sacks were coverage sacks. Totally. I do believe that Justin Herbert actually ended up holding the ball a little bit too longer than he should have.
Agreed.
But ultimately, you give Justin Herbert a cleaner pocket, especially from the interior, he's going to be able to do so much more damage to opposing defenses. So it's not flawless. It's still a work in progress. I know nobody likes hearing that, given the fact of where we're at in the season. But you're going to have to figure out a way to work with this and get better as a group.
It's just wild to rewind a couple months. And if you were to tell me that this Chargers team is winning in spite of its offensive line struggles, or if you were to tell me that this Chargers offensive line is struggling, how are they doing?
You wouldn't assume that their record would be 5-3.
No, you would flip it. But they've gotten so much more contributions from other sides. And Justin Herbert has been Justin Herbert. Next one, Jake. Let's get some of these voicemails. Ray from San Diego. Let's hear from Ray.
What's going on, boys? It's Ray from San Diego. Calling 4 minutes before the game is over. But I think it's okay. Chargers killed it. The defense killed it. Against a tough defense in Cleveland. They are tough. And look what we did to them. 3 freaking points so far. Hope it ends like this. Wow. Jesse Mensah. Craziness. Offense, good pointing, good points. Could have had one more touchdown maybe, but I love it. Everything's good. Here and there, little things to fix, but all is good, baby. Bolt the fuck up. Let's go. Love you guys. You have a good work.
All love.
Love it. So he was calling in just before the Cedric Tillman touchdown tonight, which, by the way, was a great touchdown by him. That was a fantastic touchdown by him. But, Dan, he said it. Defense still is doing what it's doing, and you're not even having your full complement of starters in this game.
Think about the secondary you're playing with right now.
Wow, you really got up to a high pitch on that one. Think about what they're doing right now. You really hit another octave.
You got Eli Apple, Troy Dye in there at linebacker. You've got Cam Hart and Tarheeb Still, rookie cornerback. Your CB1 and 2 are out. And you are doing that. That is not normal. Elijah Molden comes in from Tennessee as a misfit, and he has been balling. He has arguably been the MVP of the secondary. Take a bow, Jesse Minter and company. And players. I don't want to take any credit away from these players for doing their job and exceeding expectations. All of them are doing their job and are doing a damn good job of it. Yeah, Chargers fans are excited. Yes, I'm excited. I think Jake is excited because of what this team is winning on. You're not winning on things that aren't sustainable. Defense travels. Special teams travel. Good quarterback play travels. Good coaching travels. Deep playoff runs are made with those things. And that's what's winning these games right now.
Dan, the raise in enthusiasm from the entirety of this fan base. And again, some people may look at it as to be an overreaction. Other people might say, like, well, this is what we expected. Others might say, like, wow, we're really surprised. The summary of all that is that the Chargers haven't had something like this in nearly 20 years. And when I say something like this, I'm talking about coaching. And no, I'm not trying to predict another 14-2 records. Obviously, that's out of the way. And no, I'm not saying that the Chargers are going to run the table and go on this historic run here.
No.
But it's a difference of what a good coach and the coaching staff around him is able to develop. Mm-hmm. And when you have guys like that who are able to send a message to your players and connect with them on a different level, that's where the change comes from. It's Monday morning, and we're already talking about before 9 a.m., we heard about coaches being fired, or coaches possibly being fired in other organizations.
Draft order being talked about.
Exactly. Historically, we would be talking about that in different organizations.
We live that life.
Dan would not allow me to have any draft talk on this show historically before the season was over because he didn't feel like it was the right time to talk about it. I love talking the draft more than anybody, but I don't find any reason to bring it up today. So that's a win in my book.
Right on cue, Jake. Next voicemail. Draft question.
Fantastic. Let's talk about it.
Hey, guys. Love the show. I just had a quick question about the draft for next year. Do you think it's possible that Ortiz might consider trading up probably in the second round for more likely the top center, because the center class is, as you all know, very thin, and there are quite a few other teams that are center needy. So it just also depends on what the Chargers do at free agency. But yeah, thanks, guys.
Yeah. As far as the whole idea of trading up, it's way too hard to figure that out right now in terms of where the Chargers are going to become the final draft order. As it relates to the center class, you're going to need to prioritize it one way or another. And whether that's through the draft or through free agency. Look, I've told this to Dan numerous times. I was extremely bullish on last year's center class. I thought it was very underrated because I thought it was very deep. And yes, we talked about JPJ and Frazier on this show plenty. Wouldn't say that them selecting Joe Alt was the wrong pick, though. I think that was absolutely the right selection in the bigger picture of what they wanted to do. Now, you move a little bit further in that I was surprised that they did not take a center on day 3 of last year's draft. Now you fast forward to what's coming up. And yes, it's not nearly as deep. It's very thin class in terms of the ones that you would be considering your starters. If you were watching college football, you got a chance to look at some of the top 2 that are coming up in this class, i.e. Florida's Jake Slaughter or Georgia's Jared Wilson. Those are 2 impressive guys for center classes. I personally think that Jake Slaughter has been one of the most consistent as it relates to pass protection and run blocking the entire season.
Listen to you.
So who knows where it's going to happen? But if the simple question is, do I think that Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh are going to prioritize the offensive line once again in this class? 100%. I don't think that it's going to be early because I think you're going to need to prioritize the defensive side of the ball. You spent 2 picks on the offensive side of the ball in 2024. I think you're going to have to do quite the opposite in 2025, especially with who is coming out defensively for this class. But offensive line help, yes, 100%. I think they put stock in that once again next year.
Imagine the euphoria, Jake, if you get a victory Monday and you get to talk about NFL draft in November.
Good. Why don't we talk about draft on this show more often? I don't know. Somebody tell me. Who has been holding me back?
All right, we got one more voicemail here. Let's hear what has to be said about the voice of reason. The voice of reason. Is that you or me?
It definitely can't be me.
Dan. first off, with the show, just kind of wanted to be the voice or a voice of reason here and say that despite the offense, it's seemingly always struggling to score points in the second half, does it really matter that much when your defense is playing at such a high level? And you eventually do get the dagger.
Sorry, I thought it was stuck in my throat, Jake.
The touchdown to end the game late in the fourth. So as long as the defense plays like this and the offense just finds its rhythm late in the game, I think they'll have a chance to win any game against any team. So, yeah, love the show, guys. Hold up.
Dan, I'll give it to you. You just said make it simple. You scored 20. You felt like they were winning this game. My bold prediction didn't have the Browns scoring above 20. Or my final score prediction did not have the Browns scoring above 20. It's essentially been that way for this Chargers defense, with the exception of the Pittsburgh game, throughout this entire year. They have not allowed other teams. They may allow you to get yards, but when it comes to the end zone, they don't like you stepping in there.
Nope.
And they've done a damn good job over the past few weeks of preventing that.
Yeah. Again, love the voicemails. Thank you all for tuning in to the hotline. You guys were great. And we got 4 this week. Let's see what happens next week. Again, 323-902-7586 is a hotline number. Again, 323-902-7586. Again, it wasn't all roses. We talked about some of the lessons that were learned in a victory, which is the best way to have it. Talked about the offensive line. Struggle at times. Talked about the offense consistency in the second half. There were some issues in special teams as well, both in the good and the bad. You saw the Darius Davis good. You saw Cameron Dicker miss his first field goal under 50 yards of his career, which is incredible, by the way. Missed another extra point. And those things matter when you play great teams. I'll give you that. Even on the field goal block, Jake. I don't know if folks saw this, but I put it out on Twitter. Go back and look at what happens after that field goal is blocked. That could have been a touchdown the other way. There are lessons to be learned in this game, but you want to have lessons learned after a victory. And say what you will about the struggles in the second half, and say what you will about the lack of pressure from this defense going into this game, and lack of weapons at wide receiver, and tight end. Like, you can go through issues, but you gotta be bullish on how much this team has accomplished in one offseason and what culture has looked like in these first 9 weeks compared to what we've seen in the past. I said some of those lessons. Were there any other big lessons that you learned, good or bad, from that game?
I don't want to necessarily say it's from this game, because I felt the tide starting to shift offensively for this team a couple weeks back. Even you look at the Arizona game, and even that being a loss, just go back and focus on Justin Herbert. You take away those 7 drops, that's a very different ball game. But Justin Herbert, I felt, was in his bag. Even taking 3 sacks in that game, Justin Herbert was in his bag. And you've just seen that grow through the Saints game, grow through this Cleveland Browns game. I would hope that, again, you're going to still find a little bit better execution to be a little bit more balanced. And the Chargers have proven when they can stay ahead of the sticks and run up the score differential between them and the opposing team, they are capable of closing those games out. Defensively, Dan, like I said, we could go on for an hour talking about Jesse Minter, and there will not be enough flowers to give him when that hour is up.
1-800-Flowers. Just send them.
Truly, it's not going to be enough. I don't care how many you send him. 4 dozen, 8 dozen. I don't care what it is. It's not going to be enough, considering what he has done in a short period of time with a very young defense put together by free agents and rookies. And this is what you're doing. It's absolutely incredible. You just hope that this is what's going to continue. And if it's looking as good as it is right now, as Dan said, it's not flawless. Both sides of the ball, still things to be cleaned up. But if this is where everything stands at right now, imagine where it could look. Or imagine what it could be 3-4 weeks from now.
For context now, Jake, don't look now. The 3 losses this Chargers team has had this year have been against the leader of the AFC North, Pittsburgh Steelers, 6-2. The leader of the AFC West, the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs, 7-0. And the leader of the NFC West, Arizona Cardinals, who are now 5-4. So it's not like, going back, you look at it retrospectively, they've lost good teams. This Chargers team is starting to get noticed nationally. You're starting to see praise start to come in, focus from people on Jesse Minter, on this defense, on Justin Herbert. You're hearing MVP talk starting to whisper. Primetime games now getting flexed in. Chargers, Bengals. You got primetime games coming up here against the Ravens, against the Bengals. You've got an opportunity here to really put your name there. I mean, you're currently well in the playoff picture right now. You have winnable games coming up against bad teams. Again, you can't chalk all of them up to victories. No victory is easy. But they are in a great position. Go down the stretch. Be in position to win some games they maybe shouldn't. And win the games they should. If they do just that, go back and look at the schedule, that's 11 wins.
I think that's what everybody in the back of their head, Dan, is waiting for. Again, you play who you play each week. You get prepared for that. You go out and you try your best to win the game. But I think that is one of the things that has eluded the Chargers in the win column is everybody can always go back and say, yes, Chargers don't make their schedule. They play who they play, but who have they beaten and what quarterbacks have they beaten? You've got an opportunity 2 weeks from now to start a huge shift in that argument.
Chargers win. They improved to 5-3 firmly in the playoffs currently as it stands. They go up against Tennessee Titans team who is not good right now coming up at SoFi. Chargers home games, a lot of them coming up. Lots to be excited about. This Chargers team is looking good, trending in the right direction. Offense is looking better. Defense is still balling. Got a coaching staff and a quarterback who are just killing it right now. Not all perfect, but it's looking pretty good right now. And you would take this going into the season. I think you would have signed up for a 5-3 record. Jake, anything else? We went through a bunch today, a little rapid fire, but anything else we'll talk about with the great friends before we get out of here?
Good victory Monday. Always good for a victory Monday. Chargers sit at 5-3 in a really good position to retake second place in the AFC West as it currently stands right now. Dan, everybody's feeling good right now. Let's make the back half of this season just as good as the first.
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders are in shambles. The Broncos got the doors blown off. Chargers win. Chiefs are playing. It's starting to get fun. This is where it all begins. This has been fun, Jake. For you, folks can find you at Jake D. Hefner on X. You can find me at Dan W. Sports. Again, please take 10 seconds, hit that like, subscribe, leave a review, hit the like button, all that jazz. Helps out a ton. But until next time, we'll talk to you on the next Chargers Unleashed.